as the 21st century began, human evolution was at a turning point. Natural selection, the process by which the strongest, the smartest, the fastest reproduced in greater numbers than the rest, a process which had once favored the noblest traits of man, now began to favor different traits. Most science fiction of the day predicted a future that was more civilized and more intelligent. But as time went on, things seemed to be heading in the opposite direction, a dumbing down. How did this happen? Evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence. With no natural predators to thin the herd, it began to simply reward those who reproduced the most and left the intelligent to become an endangered species.
Sometimes I just think understand human behavior.
It can only be attributable to human error.
All our flaws are intrinsic of the human race. Opposable thumbs and fingers to point out who to blame. Monkey see, monkey do the same. Monkeys at the zoo, so is used to only looking through the cage. Inherited tendencies tend to set a trend, you see. In order to assimilate, we simulated entropy. Imitate the edifice through artificial chemistry. It's self-preservation, imperative empathy. Vital for survival, try to integrate, infiltrate, instigate, initiate, and think of something to say. Make the conversation drift the way you want before they comprehend you. Influence the way that their decisions made. Make deliberate mistakes on a daily basis. Keep it homeostasis. We're homo sapiens, homie, so you know we're fearing the changes to the damaged limitations we've restricted the brain with. Relatively stable equilibrium. Diligence is prevalent and evidence is ridiculed if dissonant. Citizens are designated dissidents if they develop opinions that differ from the consensus of the militant. Life's a bitch, nah, life's habitual. It's just a life cycle of the spiteful and cynical. Alternatively, you could be blinded by the miracle, convinced because the odds of the coincidence is minimal. If the results are anomalous, modify the hypothesis or sign on the dotted line in anonymity. These monuments are just products of modern politics. Democracy is no recompense for common sense. And since we share the same character traits, it's easy to get carried away by things you think that you randomly say. There's only so much you can add to the page when less than half of the color spectrum can be displayed. You're only a product of what you already have in your brain. The sum will only equal the parts that you can entertain. The notion of a concept you cannot explain. The solution to equations you can manage to fathom today. So competitive, it's all relative. Inherited endeavor to get better than your nemesis. Survival of the fittest is the witness to the benefit, but only see improvement in the things we've taken measurements. Evidence presented when it's confirmation bias. Sociable pride set on fire in the rise, while your ambition is just driven by your jealousy and fear and the need to feel elite superiority. You think there's such a thing as altruism? Every symbiotic relationship is codependent, know the difference. Notice motives, every soul is on a solo mission. It's social convention dictating your whole religion. See it as cynicism, pessimism, but it isn't less or different to wisdom if it's proven to be true, is it? Push it to its limits, break the glass ceiling of the man-made structure that only functions as a crutch for all the ones that lack meaning. Any cunt that lacks feeding, or the junkies getting fucked for the same exact reason. And I'd give you something you can sink your back teeth in, but wisdom will only come to those who accept that they lack freedom. Free will is only governed by our instincts and our primitive urges to continue to exist. So it's highly unlikely that we'll find the missing link. It's probably buried in the history books the victors chose not to print. But this can only be a product of collective thought in a shared conscience of nonsense and other metaphors. An acknowledgement of an infection we have never cured, and my ego is just as susceptible as yours.
Human nature at its best.
It can only be attributable to human error.